Now let's start with Linux directory structure. Now, as you can see from this image, actually, this is the Linux directory structure. So this is like a tree. And from here, you can see that we are starting from the slash, and here slash, which means the root directory, which is where everything starts. Now, we can start from the bin. Now you can see slash bin, which means the bin directory inside the root directory. And by the way, the bin here is for the user binaries. We have the sbin for the system binaries. We have the etc configuration files. Don't worry, we will talk about each one of them in details. As a low-level details, everything you need, it will be handled in this lecture. No worries. We have the div for device files. We have the proc for the process, or the proc for the process information. We have the var for the variables files. We have the temporary files, slash user for user programs, home for the home directories. This is for the users, the home directory of the users. The bootloader files, the lib system libraries, opt, the optional add-on apps, mnt for the mount directory, media for removable devices like USB, CD, etc., etc. Back then floppy, if you are aware of this, it was an old storage media, and srv for the service data. Okay, now let's start one by one. First, let's start with the root or the slash. Now every single file and directory starts from the root directory. Only root user has write privilege under this directory. And please note that the root is the root user home directory, which is not the same as slash. So we have actually two places. Please don't get confused. So we have the slash alone, which means the root directory of the all of the system files, okay, as we mentioned before. And we have the slash root. If we return back here, actually I didn't put it here because it is not important that much necessarily, but actually I should have put it here, which is the slash root. Okay, so it should be one of these, slash root, which is the home directory of the root user. Okay, don't worry, we will handle that in details. Okay, so the slash root is not the same as the slash. Slash root is the home directory of the root user. Okay, and slash is the root directory of all of the files and data of the system. Okay, cool. Now let's start with the bin or the user binaries. It contains the binary executables. Common Linux commands you need to use in a single user mode are located under this directory. Commands used by all the users of the system are located here as well. So for example, the ps command, ls, bing, grep, cp for the copy, and etc., etc. Okay, the sbin, the system binaries. Just like the bin, the sbin also contains binary executables, but the Linux commands located under this directory are used typically by the system administrator for system maintenance purpose. And for example, iptables, reboot, fdisk, ifconfig, swapon, and so on. Now, let's start with the etc, the configuration files. This contains configuration files required by all the programs. This also contains startup and shutdown shell scripts used to start, stop individual programs. For example, etc resolve.conf, etc logrotate.conf, and we have that. If you install Nginx, you will find it here. If you install Apache, you will find it here, MySQL, PostgreSQL, etc., etc. Okay? This is the configuration files for specific programs. Now let's start with the div devices or device files. This contains device files. These include terminal device, USB, or any device attached to the system. For example, div tty, which is the teletyper, type 1, okay. Don't worry, we will talk about this later on in this course. The div USB moon 0. These are examples. Now, the proc or the process information. This contains information about system process. This is a pseudo file system contains information about running process. For example, /proc PID, the process identifier directory, contains information about the process with that particular PID. So for example, you are running specific service or specific process with PID. Every information or pseudo information will be found here, okay? And under the proc slash the PID, for example, 900. If you go to the 900, you will find that all the information about this specific process. This is a virtual file system with the text information about system resources. So for example, the proc uptime. This is one of the processes. Now let's start with the var or variable files. var stands for variable files. The content of the files that are expected to grow can be found under this directory. So this includes system log files. So for example, /var log, packages and database files /var lib, emails /var email, print queue /var spool, log files, for example, /var log, temp files needed across reboots /var temp, and so on. Now let's start with the temp or temporary files. Directory that contains temporary files created by system and users. The files under this directory are deleted when system is rebooted, because this is a temporary after all. The /user or user programs, it contains binary, libraries, documentation, and source code for second level programs. So for example, /user bin contains binary files for user program. If you cannot find a user binary under /bin, look under the /user bin, for example. For example, let's see at awk, the command for awk, cc, ls, scp, all of that will be, most likely, will be located under this directory. So the /user sbin also contains binary files for system administrators. So, for example, if you cannot find a system binary under sbin, look under the user sbin. For example, again, atd, cron, sshd, the user add command, user del command. So to continue, user lib contains libraries as well for the user bin and user sbin. And the user local contains users programs that you install from the source. So for example, when you install Apache from source, it goes under the /user local Apache 2. Okay, so again, the /user here is for the user programs. Okay, and it is under it you can find user lib, user bin, user local, user sbin, and so on. The home directory /home. This is the home directory of all users to store their personal files. So for example, we have user called John. It will be /home/John. Again, Nikita /home Nikita, and so on. Okay, the personal files of these users will be here under the home. The same as we mentioned before, the root, it will not be /home root. No, it will be /root directly. Okay, because this is the root user. After all, it should be separated between the regular users, right? /boot or bootloader files. It contains bootloader related files, kernel, init.rd, VM Linux, grub files are located under the /boot. For example, init.image-2.6, etc., generic. This is one of the files that needed for the bootloader. And another file is VM Linux, etc., generic. Okay, this is the version. It doesn't matter for now. This is just an example. So these are files very important for the bootloader. So it will be located under the /boot. The lib or the system libraries. This contains files that supports the binary located under the /bin and sbin. Libraries files are either ld star or lib star, okay, .so star, etc. For example, ld 2. etc. .so, lib courses.so 5.7, etc. These are just another examples. The opt or optional add-on applications. So opt stands for optional, contains add-on applications for individual vendors. Add-on applications should be installed under either opt or opt subdirectory. Okay, so anything inside the opt. The MNT or mount directory. Temporary mount directory where a system administrator can mount file system. Okay, So you want to mount a specific file system, network file system, okay? You will most likely mount it here by default, unless you want it another place. The slash media, the removable media devices. Temporary, this is a temporary mount directory for removable devices. So for example, slash media CD-ROM, this is for the CD-ROM. Media floppy for the floppy drives. If you recall these actually is a very old one. They are not exist anymore. Actually, the CD-ROM is not exist anymore, but some are still using it. Media CD recorder for CD writer, and so on. The SRV or service data. SRV stands for service. It contains server specific services related data. So for example, slash SRV CFS contains CFS related data. Okay, thanks for watching.